Hey, what's up everybody and welcome back to News Dose, and things are starting to become clear that Sony is shifting their focus more and more onto live service titles. This is not the same PlayStation that poured most of their effort into single-player driven games. PlayStation boss Jim Ryan is taking the company into a new direction to some fans' dismay, though they're also quickly learning what I've pretty much been saying all along, that this is an extremely risky market. And now Naughty Dog, their flagship studio, has unfortunately been impacted by this new live service direction. So we're going to get all of that a little later on today, as well as Microsoft filing their appeal against the CMA. This includes 5 different reasons in which they think the CMA is wrong about their decision to block Activision Blizzard. The question is their case actually strong enough to get the CMA to change course? Well, we're going to dive into that as well. Of course, we do have a few other things to talk about as well, so let's just go ahead and jump right into it. Actually, starting off with Xbox, because they just revealed the new Forza Motorsport's cover art. You can actually see here posted up by Turn 10, they said, "We're excited to confirm your Forza Motorsport's cover cars. Meet the stunning 2023 #1 Cadillac Racing V Series R and 2024 Chevrolet Corvette E-Ray. Tune into the Xbox Games Showcase on June 11th for an up-close look at the cars and see a full walkthrough of our single-player career gameplay during Forza Monthly on June 13th. See you at the starting line." So, there you go. For you car fanatics out there, here's 2 different car confirmations. Though I think the interesting part about this specific announcement is actually the schedule itself. I think most of us were already kind of expecting Forza to be at the Xbox Showcase on June 11th. That's not really all that surprising. It is expected to release this year. So what I imagine is probably going to happen here is that they're going to announce a release date on June 11th. They'll also probably show all the different improvements they've made since Forza 7. It's been the longest stretch between Forza titles ever. So they've made some big changes. They've already mentioned that before, but I will say I think this is probably the most exciting new Forza Motorsports entry in a very, very long time. I'm actually excited to see this one myself, but we will get that deep dive into what all it has to offer this June. However, though, that is the other part that kind of stood out to me, though, because they also mentioned that we will get a full walkthrough of its single player on June 13th. So, if you've been looking forward to seeing that new Forza, you don't just have one event to look forward to here, but rather you actually have 2. One on June 11th, and then the other June 13th. Speaking of events, though, there was actually an Alone in the Dark spotlight yesterday where they revealed the reboot's release date, which is now officially October 25th for $60. So again, that October month is quickly filling out here. They then also revealed some other details here, though. It was about a 12-minute long video where some of the cast and developers talked about the game. I do recommend watching it if you like the series, or really if you're just interested in what this game actually is. This is a reboot of a dormant IP that started way back in 1992. So, understandably, I think a lot of people probably don't even really know what this series is, even for myself. And I've been playing games since I was a wee little kid. I've never played these games. I was 1 year old whenever the original released. But what I will say is that the reboot, it seems interesting. The atmosphere especially, I think, seems quite strong, if anything else. And if you do want another spooktacular game for the month of October, hey, maybe go and keep an eye on Alone in the Dark. In the meantime, though, they did release a free playable prologue that you can download right now on Xbox, PlayStation, and also PC. All right, so let's just go ahead and talk about PlayStation here, though, because it seems like PlayStation is taking a very different direction this generation than what we saw with the PlayStation 4. And fans are starting to catch on. Okay, so there were already some clues about this, but the last 2 weeks have kind of put that mission and the risk that it involves a little bit more at the forefront. More on that here in just a second, but I think in order to paint a picture, we need to first go back to 2022. In 2022, Jim Ryan, in a financial meeting, mentioned that Sony's goal is to release 12 live service games by the end of their 2025 fiscal year. So that was the first major sign that Sony has a newfound focus in live service games. They have a lot of these games in development. Then this year, and this just happened this week, Sony posted yet another report, and you can see the graph here. This is what their PlayStation 5 business model currently looks like. You can see that in 2019, 88% of their investments was for single-player games, whereas 12% was for live service. Then fast forward to 2025, where they expect 60% of their investment to be for live service games as opposed to single-player. I mean, you can even kind of see it at the PlayStation Showcase. The evidence was there. 4 out of the 5 first-party games that they showed were live service titles, with Spider-Man 2 being the only first-party single-player reveal. Now, however, it is important to keep in mind that they do still have single-player games in development, and they've been very adamant that their single-player content is not going to slow down, which I do believe that to be true, but on the same spectrum, based on their very own data, the majority of their new games in development will be live service. In other words, don't expect a major upshift in single-player content compared to the PlayStation 4 because they're more focused on expanding live service games now. That is Jim Ryan's mission. He has fully committed to what I like to call the mythical cash cow syndrome. I mean, you all have heard me talk about this before. I've said it so many times on this channel. But the thing about live service games are that they are incredibly risky. The reason publishers like them so much is because there's a lot of upside that can make them just bukus of money for years and years to come. We've seen that with Fortnite. We've seen it with Fall Guys, Rocket League, Warzone, Apex Legends, PUBG, and a few others out there. But because this is such a competitive market, and more importantly, you have to pry players from other popular games to play yours, it's just very difficult to make a dent. Most live service games, they end up failing. And Sony is now unfortunately learning all about that. PlayStation's Herman Hulse recently mentioned that Bungie and Sony did a rigorous evaluation for their internal live service content, and the results have seemingly impacted at least 3 games thus far. Reportedly, a couple weeks ago, Sony canceled a AAA live service sci-fi shooter developed by Final Strike Studios. Shortly then after that, reports came out that Deviation Games, they were hit with major layoffs. Sony was publishing their live service title as well. And then today, and this is the biggest hit yet, because Naughty Dog just sent out a message to fans about the absence of The Last of Us Part 2 multiplayer. A lot of people were expecting that to be revealed at the PlayStation Showcase. It was supposedly going to release this year, but here's what Naughty Dog had to say. The Last of Us fans, we know many of you have been looking forward to hearing more about our The Last of Us multiplayer game. We're incredibly proud of the job our studio has done thus far, but as development has continued, we've realized that what is best for the game is to give it more time. Our team will continue to work on the project as well as our other games in development, including a brand new single-player experience. We look forward to sharing more soon. We're grateful to our fantastic community for your support. Thank you for your passion for our games. It continues to drive us. So there is a little bit of a silver lining here because they did confirm a brand new single-player experience. So, I mean, hey, that's good news at the very least. But unfortunately, the Factions multiplayer has now officially been delayed. When I first read that, I was thinking, okay, maybe it'll release in 2024. But okay, this story, it's not quite over just yet because Jason Schreier, shortly after, posted a report detailing the situation, and according to him, the situation is a lot more dire than this letter lets on. In his report, he said, Sony has slowed down development on an upcoming multiplayer game and is long-running The Last of Us video game series as the creators reassess its quality and long-term viability, according to 4 people familiar with the project. The team working on the game was scaled back after a recent evaluation, said the people, who asked not to be named because they weren't authorized to speak publicly. A small group remains on the project while the company reevaluates the direction. While the game has not been canceled, many of its developers have been moved to other projects. So, yeah, things are not looking good here. And even Jeff Grubb mentioned, all I've heard about this game is that it looks a lot like a studio's first live service game, and that Naughty Dog wanted to do things its way, which maybe didn't bode well for Factions. So, on one hand, it sounds like that it's not canceled. So there's that. If you're looking forward to this game, it is still in development. But it also sounds like it's not exactly shaping up all that well either. Now, maybe Sony is giving them a little extra leeway just considering Naughty Dog's reputation, but what I have to say to that is that their reputation is built on single-player content. There was never a guarantee that they could sell a multiplayer-focused game. That is a completely different beast. I mean, sure, some people enjoyed Factions and also the Uncharted multiplayer, but the reason that those games are so successful is because they're single-player. And this this kind of takes me back to the risk that's involved here. I guess they are making a rather big push here, though, so they will have plenty of opportunities, and without a doubt, we will see a lot more of these games in the future. I mean, we just got the Fair Games and Concord announcement at the PlayStation Showcase, so if Sony finds success with even maybe one of these games, maybe it'll be worth it for them, but I don't know. Jim Ryan, to me, might honestly be the worst thing that could have happened to PlayStation. If anything, though, I mean, we just kind of got to see how all this plays out. But with 60% of their investment in live service games, we're going to hear a lot more about these games in the coming years. I guess the silver lining here, though, is that, again, at the very least, they're not slowing down with their single-player content. But I would have much preferred them to double down on what makes them so special in the first place, as opposed to what we're getting here with this new direction, where we're probably going to see more live service games than single player. On to our final topic, though. Microsoft did just file their appeal against the CMA and their decision to block Activision Blizzard. I know some people thought that they wouldn't even try to appeal, but just as Microsoft pledged, they absolutely did. And they listed 5 different reasons as to why they think the CMA's decision is both unlawful and wrong. Now, you can actually see the full document on the Competition Tribunal website, which I will post in the description below, but Microsoft did make a statement which summarizes their key arguments. It reads, "The CMA's decision is flawed for multiple reasons, including its overestimation of the role of cloud streaming in the gaming market and our position in it, as well as its unwillingness to consider solutions that received overwhelming industry and public support." So the first part here being about how the CMA has overstated their cloud gaming numbers immediately stood out, because the CMA they are flat out wrong about this. I don't think that there's a single argument that they can make against Microsoft in this situation. They're just wrong. So basically what the CMA did here is that in order to bolster their own argument, they lopped Xbox Game Pass subscriptions with cloud-based users, and then claimed that Microsoft has 60 to 70% of the cloud gaming market. I mean, I think we all kind of know people aren't subscribing to Game Pass because of cloud gaming. It really is just a bonus right now, if anything else. And even then, few people actually regularly use it. Even the EU in their decision criticized the CMA for making this claim. So I think because of this argument alone, Microsoft already has a great case against the CMA. The other part here, though, I think is also a pretty good argument for Microsoft. Basically, Microsoft believes they've already solved the CMA's issues with different concessions that they've offered. After the EU approved the Activision Blizzard acquisition, Microsoft's Brad Smith did post this: "The European Commission has required Microsoft to license popular Activision Blizzard games automatically to competing cloud gaming services. This will apply globally and will empower millions of consumers worldwide to play these games on any device they choose." So with that, and I've said this before, I think it kind of crushes the CMA's and the FTC's arguments. I don't see how they can possibly make a case that the acquisition is bad for the cloud gaming market with these concessions. Everybody's going to get Activision games, which, by the way, currently are on nobody's cloud gaming services as of this moment. So how can the CMA really argue that this buyout is bad for cloud gaming? How can they argue that it's bad for consumers? It seems both pro-competitive and pro-consumer. I mean, as always, I guess we'll just have to kind of see how this plays out. It's just been one twist after another, but looking at Microsoft's appeal here, I actually do believe that they have a pretty decent shot at winning against the CMA. Let's go take a look at the poll of the day, though, where I asked you all, with Alan Wake 2 being digital only to keep it cheaper, do you like the idea of games being $60 and the sacrifice of a physical version? And yeah, actually, a lot of you all do like this idea, with 60% of you saying yes, while 33% of you said no. Honestly, I'm not really all that surprised by the results here. Digital games have grown, and we've seen in recent years that more people than ever before are buying digital games as opposed to physical. So for those consumers already buying digital, which there's a lot of them, this move only benefits them. Now, at the same time, though, I think that 33% is a pretty good case against doing digital-only AAA games, and the reason I say that is because 33% is still a lot of people. That means that you would basically be alienating 1/3 of your consumers by going digital only. In other words, instead of selling 3 million copies, well, Now you just sold 2 million. That 33% is still very, very impactful. So I think the results speaks to why publishers need to offer options. Now, at the same time, though, I do wonder if there's an argument to be made that digital versions should be cheaper than physical. If more publishers were to do something like that, then you might see even more people shift over to digital at a faster rate. And then eventually, this topic then might become moot. But I think as of right now in 2023, it does seem like that there's still a large portion of gamers, even if not necessarily the majority, but still a good portion wants physical, and that's why I think that options should still be a thing. Anyways, though, that's it for this episode. But if you liked the video, don't forget to bell notification and subscribe button for more content just like this. Also, if you'd like to support the channel through Patreon, thank you for making this content possible. Peace out.